So the Wall Street Journal out with a fascinating report on a businessman who may have pulled off one of the biggest financial frauds in history. And here you, not only that, but it also details some of the people who are defending him. Now, the U.S. Justice Department is now investigating whether a fugitive Malaysian financier had laundered tens of millions of dollars through two associates and used the funds to pay a legal team that includes former New Jersey Governor Christie and a lawyer who represents President Trump, according to people familiar with the matter. So, look, there's a lot here to unpack, and it's absolutely fascinating. So let me go into the details here. Now, the man, the Malaysian, is known as Joe Low. I'm probably not saying that right. Now, he has been described in U.S. court filings as playing a central role in the alleged embezzlement of $4.5 billion from a Malaysian fund called One Malaysia Development BHD. Now, Malaysian authorities this week separately charged Mr. Low with money laundering in the case, which investigators suspect may be one of the biggest financial frauds in history. Now, because of that, of course, and because he hasn't been able to access a lot of his money, he has been moving around Hong Kong, Macau, and mainland China in recent months, according to people with knowledge of his whereabouts. So basically, this guy is trying to make himself scarce, moving around to many different places. I don't know, maybe to avoid getting caught, maybe to avoid getting arrested. I'm not entirely sure of his motivations. But let me give you more details. Mr. Low was close to former Malaysian Prime Minister Najib Razak, who unexpectedly lost an election in May and was arrested last month in Kuala Lumpur. Mr. Najib is pleaded not guilty to charges of money laundering and criminal breach of trust in connection with the 1MDB scandal. So Joe and Razak probably were connected since they were both allegedly funneling money or laundering money from the same financial firm. Interesting. Now, that's over in Asia, right? So why is the United States Justice Department looking into this? What does this have to do with the United States? What does this have to do with Chris Christie? Well, we'll get to that. But first, the Justice Department, in July of 2016 and last year, had filed civil lawsuits in federal court in California seeking to recover assets from Mr. Low and others, including mansions, artwork, and a yacht allegedly bought with 1MDB funds. It is now pursuing a criminal investigation in which Mr. Low, who has U.S. assets, is a target, according to people familiar with the investigation. You know, it's actually kind of refreshing to see the Trump administration, the Trump Justice Department, headed by Jeff Sessions, of all people, pursuing a financial criminal. I mean, look, especially one who is alleged to have done money laundering, no less. It's kind of fascinating, right? Now, the Justice Department is investigating Mr. Low's potential use of two intermediaries to facilitate the payments through the international financial system, according to people familiar with the matter. So, okay. So now, this money, look, 10 different countries. This is how far this entire thing spans. 10 countries are involved, including the United States, where Mr. Low apparently has assets in all of those different countries. So now we know so far that the money had allegedly misappropriated from 1MDB had moved through global wealth centers before being used to buy real estate, art, and other assets around the world, including New York and Beverly Hills. So that's kind of where that's just shows you the spread of this, okay? So now we've got the context of Mr. Low's alleged crimes. Let's get to his defense team. Now, here's a couple names you might know. The team of lawyers and consultants working for Mr. Low includes former Governor Chris Christie. Now, Chris Christie briefly headed Trump's presidential transition team. You also have Mr. Trump's longtime lawyer, Mark Kasowitz. Bobby Birchfield, a lawyer who has served as the Trump Organization's outside ethics advisor, and Ed Rogers, a Washington lobbyist with close ties to the Republican Party. Now, this is very interesting this is actually going to tie in later on. Now, to be clear, though, Mr. Trump himself has pretty much nothing to do with the allegations against Mr. Lowe, right? So Trump himself, not involved. The weird thing is that there seems to be a lot of people around Donald Trump who are defending someone with charges of money laundering against him. And, more interestingly, may have gotten paid with tainted money. So that's why they're looking into Christie's role. Now, on that possibility, there's a statement here from a spokesman of Mr. Christie. He says that there's been no communication by Governor Christie with any other area of the government on Mr. Lowe's behalf, adding that there is no inquiry made to him by the Justice Department with regard to any other investigation regarding funding or otherwise. A spokesman for Kasowitz Benson Torres, Mr. Kasowitz's New York law firm, confirmed that the firm represents Mr. Lowe in Justice Department matters. Here, as with all of our clients, our job as attorneys is to represent and vindicate our clients' interests. And here, as with all of our non-pro bono clients, we are paid for the legal services we provide. Other lawyers have made similar statements, except for Mr. Rogers, who denied to make any sort of comment. Now, that's interesting, right? On Christie, for example, there has been no communication by Governor Christie with any other area of the government on Mr. Lowe's behalf. Now, Christie is the attorney for Mr. Lowe. So, wait a minute. You're saying that Mr. Christie has not talked to the government, any other branch of the government, or any other communication on behalf of his client. But isn't that what you're supposed to do? You're supposed to advocate for your client? That's a strange statement. Maybe I'm reading too much into that. Now, there is another interesting name, besides Christie and Kasowitz, that pops up here. Now, the Justice Department is looking into whether a Thai businessman, Phang Phan Lobgnerd, there's no way I've said that correctly, an American former rap artist, Pras Michael, the founding member of the Fugees hip-hop group, played roles in helping Mr. Lowe make payments, the people familiar with the matter said. I'm not even to the interesting name, right? So that's just a couple of other people that have been making payments on behalf of Mr. Lowe. Now, Mr. Michel, or Michael, was responsible for bringing on a certain consultant to work with Mr. Lowe's behalf. This is who I want to point out. Republican fundraiser and venture capital executive, Elliot Broidy. What? Now you've got Elliot Broidy involved, who was also involved in another investigation, in which, of course, it is possible that he paid a porn star, he did pay a porn star $1.6 million, but there's the possibility that he paid off this porn star on behalf of Donald Trump to get this woman an abortion of what could have been Donald Trump's illegitimate child. Look, this is insanity. Insanity. There's more. Now, the root of any payments to Mr. Broidy also are part of the Justice Department probe, the people said. Chris Christie, Mark Kasowitz, and Elliot Broidy are popping up in this case, weirdly so, and may or may not have been paid by tainted money connected to one of the biggest financial frauds in history. This is unbelievable. Unbelievable. And of course, you have people that are also under investigation themselves. This is crazy. Now, in fact, the Public Integrity section of the Justice Department is separately investigating some of the lobbying work on behalf of Mr. Lowe, including whether Mr. Broidy attempted to sell his influence in the Trump administration to Mr. Lowe, who in turn was allegedly acting as an agent of the Malaysian and Chinese governments. People familiar with the investigation said, and this is where this all comes together and ties in. It turns out Mr. Lowe has been seeking to influence the administration to drop his investigations into him and 1MDB, according to people familiar with Mr. Lowe's dealings and the Justice Department investigations. All those investigations overlap and involve some of the same investigators. That's also strange. So, I wonder if that has anything to do the fact that they want to influence the Trump administration, that they hired a bunch of Trump people, Brody, Kasowitz, and Christie, to represent him, so that Elliott, Brody, Christie, and Kasowitz can go and say, hey, Donald Trump, maybe you should get Jeff Sessions to get off this 1MDB investigation. Get off Mr. Lowe's back. I don't know. I don't know if that's the case. That is possible. Fascinating. Now, I have suspected, by the way, that Donald Trump himself has engaged in money laundering. Again, I don't have any proof of that, but that is my suspicion. And that's related, I think, to the Russia investigation. That's the only thing that I think the Russia investigation, or let's just say the most important thing I think could come out of the Russia investigation, that he was laundering money. Here you have a guy who also laundered money, allegedly. Hiring members of the Trump, or the former, or people that are in Trump's orbit, I should say, and at some point worked for Donald Trump, to lobby on his behalf to Trump. Hey man, look, we might have done the same crimes. Maybe we can help each other out. Maybe you get your Justice Department off me. Speculation, I know. All I know is, look, excellent reporting by the Wall Street Journal. Not your liberal rag, right? So that makes it even more important. So I don't know what's going to happen. It's a very interesting case. I should watch that. We should definitely watch to see what happens as this case moves forward. It is fascinating. We'll know the answer if the Justice Department decides to drop the case into Mr. Lowe. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.